as he descended into angry and fact-free rants about immigrants eating dogs and imaginary peace talks in Ukraine. And inflation eased again in August, dropping to the lowest level in more than 3 years and locking in expectations that the feds are
Time on KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Presenting Again Fling's love story. Dear love of my life, we were on the 12B bus this morning when I caught a whiff. A scent so fresh, so life-changing, I had to find its source. Alas, I didn't know if you were the woman in the pink freshly washed cardigan or the retired mailman next to me, but I knew one of you was my soulmate. Ah, the scent of Gain Flings. Try Gain Flings with OxyBoost and Febreze.
What's wrong?
My travel rewards card didn't earn enough miles for my vacation.
Are you crying? Are you crying because of that other credit card?
Uh-huh.
Well, switch to the Capital One Venture card. Venture lets you redeem miles on any travel purchase.
Really?
Yep, and you earn unlimited double miles on every purchase every single day. The Capital One Venture card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Single Moms Planet is a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting under-resourced single mom business owners and working mothers nationwide. Single Moms Planet offers comprehensive programs of financial literacy, business development, mentorship, and entrepreneurial training. They provide education, accountability, and hope. Single Moms Planet was founded by model, TV personality, and producer Nefertiri Plessy. Nefertiri felt firsthand the challenges that face single moms as she was raised by a working single mother. She learned that the most disadvantaged group in the United States are single mom families. According to the U.S. Census, 30% live under the poverty line. So she decided to do something about it, along with co-founder Cole Patterson. Their goal is to end the poverty cycle in single mother households through education, opportunity, and networking, providing family and child enrichment programs for under-resourced single-parent families. Single Moms Planet serves over 10,000 single moms and their children each year. Studies show that business development and financial literacy provide a positive environment for children and families, exposing them to new possibilities and opportunities. To attend one of their fun events, make a donation, or get more information, or if you need help as a single mom, please visit singlemomsplanet.org. That's singlemomsplanet.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA Can also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA Can believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do,
let's play something, Grandma,
became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and Clear Skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chucha's Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, They host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The way we spend our time defines who we are. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and noted educator, journalist, and scholar Dr. Andre Perry is joining me, and we're talking about the Black-white wealth gap and a statement that Joe Biden made during his State of the Union address a couple of months earlier in this year, where he said it is the smallest, the gap is the smallest that it has been in 20 years. And then we get the statement from these scholars out of Duke University, noted economics scholars talking, basically telling the president, fact-checking him, saying that the modern racial wealth gap is in fact growing, trying to reconcile those two statements and understand what in this election season might be some ways that the new administration makes some bigger headway, some greater headway with respect to closing this racial wealth gap. Welcome back, Dr. Perry. Always a pleasure to be in conversation with you. I don't know if you had seen the statement by Joe Biden or the report and study by these the Samuel Du Bois Cook Center for Social Equity at Duke University, but how do we reconcile these two statements? Are they inconsistent, or are they comparing apples and oranges?
Oh, no. But first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to see you. And thank you for the information, the up-to-date information, and going in depth on a lot of issues. No, they're both right in a sense that Biden is talking about the black-white ratio. And so it's just one measure that is used where you compare black wealth to white wealth, just as if folks can go back to their work on fractions, you put black wealth on the top line and white wealth in the bottom line, and you look at the ratio. Now that ratio has gone up and down over the last 20 years. So in 2013, it was the same ratio it is today. But there's another measure, and this is what the authors at Duke essentially elevated, and that's nominal wealth, or wealth in just real absolute dollars. And in fact, I looked at this issue about a year ago. We wrote a piece called "Black Wealth is Growing, but so is the Wealth Gap." And what you see is that over the last 20 years, wealth in the African American community is actually growing. But because Black people were prohibited from garnering the kind of wealth as white individuals, they had less resources to invest in. And so essentially compounded interest, let's just use that as a metaphor, that white people use their discretionary resources to invest in themselves and pass on that wealth to their children. And their children invested in themselves as well, and their children. So the absolute amount of wealth is just growing a lot faster for white people than it is for Black, brown, and Asian folks. So they're both right, but in real terms, I mean, in real dollars, white wealth is just growing at a much faster rate. And if I can just add a few more bullet points that we probably need to talk about. Black wealth is highly concentrated in housing. And we'll talk a little bit about my work in housing, I'm sure. Most of Black wealth is concentrated in housing. Most of brown wealth is concentrated in housing. Second on the list for Black people are business equity. Now, what you see in white and Asian households, stock equity leads in the wealth generation, as opposed to business and housing. It's pretty evenly split among those other groups. And so Black wealth really goes along with the housing market. So right now, the housing prices are up, so Black wealth is up. When housing prices go down, Black wealth goes down. And so there's another reason why Black wealth doesn't grow as fast, and that's because we don't have as many resources in the stock market, and we don't participate in the stock market as much as our white peers. And so because the returns in the stock market can be much higher, and they have been in recent years, you're seeing expanding of white wealth versus Black wealth. So there's a lot. I said a lot there, but the bottom line is that there's much more white wealth. Black wealth is growing. I just want to be clear about there's room for optimism in that Black businesses are growing, Black people are participating in the workforce at higher levels. So there's a lot to cheer, but white wealth overall is just growing at a much faster rate.
And Professor, are you familiar with a professor out of Morgan State? His name is Jared Ball.
Yes.
He's written a book. Okay, so you know Professor Ball. So I had Professor Ball on, and we were talking about, kind of this subject, because his book is kind of taking to task this notion that how folks in Black media in particular talk about Black wealth and the Black wealth gap, or the Black white wealth gap. And Dr. Ball, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but I think I'm paraphrasing this correctly. I think he has a less positive view on the growth of Black wealth. He talks about Black buying power being misleading and being a misnomer, because he talks about the relatively small amount of Black buying power that we have. So again, is that inconsistent with what you're saying? Because it just seems like to me there's a lot of information about Black wealth that's confusing to me, and I'm an economics major undergraduate. So I'm wondering if I'm confused about it. Are Black folks, who don't have an economics or some kind of financial background, are they equally going to be confused by all these different statements about where we are in terms of our wealth?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion. The main piece that confuses people is the difference between income and wealth. Wealth is the total sum of everything you own. From if you own a car, if you own a house, you have a 401k, you have stocks, bonds, all those things you add up minus your debts. So credit card bills, your student loans, medical debt. Now, in many ways, the Black middle class is growing in terms of income. But as we see in study after study, we have lots of middle class Americans who are low wealth because they.
So Black middle class. So you mean Black people are earning more money, like just their jobs, their W-2, they're making more on the job.
That's right. But when there is a financial shock of some sort, of pandemic, housing crisis,
We are back, and we had a little technical difficulty, so we're listening to Dr. Andre Perry talk about Black economics. But in this hour, I'm joined by Professor Andrew Carl and Alan Orr, an extraordinary immigration attorney. Dr. Carl is a professor at the University of Virginia. Welcome to the show, Dr. Carl. This is your debut appearance with us. You've been on the show before, so I want to welcome you back. But debut appearance to talk about breaking news, and welcome, Alan. I guess the biggest news of the day for sure is that big debate last night. So let's just jump right into it. We're going to be talking about the debate in this hour. We'll be talking about it with some other experts in hour two. Alan, what was your initial impression of the debate?
She was prepared and it was excellently executed, and she showed that she was presidential. So it was a very clear demarcation between who the two candidates are.
Yeah, Professor Carl, one of the things we heard was that Kamala Harris had a task to do, a couple of things. She was, she needed to introduce herself to the American people. And she also needed to explain why she's changed, to the extent she has, her position on some of her, on some policies, key policies like fracking. Some experts today, if you read some of the major newspapers, are saying she did a good job overall, but she did not address the changes that she's made with respect to certain policies. What do you make of that critique?
Yeah, I mean, she was certainly dancing around a bit of that, but I mean, let's also keep in mind who she's running against. And I think, what she did last night, which was very successful, is just continue to demonstrate to the American public just how unsuited and Donald Trump is to ever go near the White House again. And he's also demonstrated again last night just how low he will go into the depths of white supremacist language in trying to scrape out more votes from the bottom of the barrel that he's been drawing from. So I think really she was able to trigger him and to get some of that out to remind the American public, if they need any reminders, of who he is and what kind of threat he poses.
Well, clearly they needed that reminder, Alan, because the headlines out of most of the major papers today is, Harris, won the debate. Harris baited Donald Trump, but there were a lot of but headlines. But will it matter? But the race is still tight. But Trump is still ahead in certain key states. Why do you think those are the reports coming out when it's clear by most standards she did the best job any presidential candidate, not just the best job that she could have done, but some folks are saying this is the best presidential debate they've seen in decades, but yet we saw those headlines suggesting that it's still not enough.
Well, debates are not elections, so that's number one. Polls are for dancers, that's number two. The media is a corporation selling stuff in ad space, that's number three. So all those things combined send you a fiction, because we won't know exactly what happens until we vote in November. And everything before that is just noise. And we've seen it happen in election after election. I think one of the major things we should also address for me is that she doesn't have to change. She's able to change the policies that she's in, because that's a good leader, right? That's why you have a cabinet. She can't be responsible for knowing everything. And she could be wrong about something, or the condition could change. And therefore you change your mind and conditions with that. But what she did say last night was that she's doing it for the American people. I'm doing it for you, not for myself. And so that's the baseline policy. Whatever my decisions are, they're going to be the best decisions at that time for the American people. And so that's the big demarcation I really saw last night, that it wasn't about me. I mean, as this is her talking about herself, it was about the United States.
Yeah, Alan, that's such a commonsensical approach. Like, yeah, she's one person. She has a cabinet for a reason. And yes, people evolve in their decisions as they get more information. They change their minds. It's not the same as flip-flopping as Donald Trump does all over issues in order clearly to try to satisfy a particular base, the way he has done on abortions, on IVF. What she has been is consistent in her values about supporting the rights and principles of American people and working, as you said, for the people. That phrase that she likes to say, when I walked into that courtroom as a junior prosecutor, the first thing I said was Kamala Harris for the people. And that has been consistent throughout all of her campaigns. But it's so funny. We didn't see anyone, making that statement like, yeah, okay, maybe I didn't agree with fracking or did agree with fracking 4 years ago or 3 years ago. And of course, my positions on a lot of issues have evolved. But Alan, I got you here for a reason, and that's Donald Trump and immigration. Mm-hmm. I don't care what the question was. It could have been about Mars. It could have been about, tornadoes or storms. He went back to immigration, and he hammered and he hammered and he hammered about the criminals and the lowlifes and the mental health patients. I mean, he just maligned immigrants in the worst way we've ever seen. I don't know who he was talking to. I told someone maybe they did some polling amongst MAGA voters and said, don't talk about anything unless you talk about immigration throughout this entire night. What did you make of that as an immigration attorney?
Right. So we know that his first campaign was based on immigration, and that's why he got elected, from the escalator coming down and basically saying immigrants are criminals. And that was the drumbeat that set him forward. So he's going back to that because he thinks that that's a weakness for the Harris and Biden administration, when it's not, because Congress hasn't done anything and they continue to have done nothing. When he, in his very first term, he had the Senate and the House and the White House, and they did not pass a single bill. He did not build new parts of the wall. So there's a big fiction line running through there on immigration. And they told him, hit immigration every time because you have to scare people to the polls. And that's what his base responds to, this fear. But in addition to that, he hit race and immigrants because he wanted to talk about the immigrants in Ohio. And rather than sort of say they were Black, he just knew that the news had already carried that they were Haitian. And so he carried with that story basically saying Black immigrants are the problem. They're the ones eating cats and dogs. They're the ones less than human. They're the ones doing all this criminal stuff. But the vice president did something majorly important last night. She did not go for that. And she said, I'm not doing this divide stuff. And she didn't sink in the hole. She didn't protect immigrants, but she didn't fall into the hole of talking about it. And she also addressed him and said, if you want to talk about criminality, let's look at you and your record as the presidency and what you've done. So this other stuff is just a big fiction. So I sort of feel like immigration right now is very problematic in all communities to understand that it's a balance. But we must understand that immigration is not either good or bad. It's how we actually administer immigration to the United States that is the most important thing to do. And Congress has to do that.
Well, it's interesting, Professor, because Goldman Sachs, that report that Kamala Harris made reference to, says that Donald Trump's economic policy would be so bad for the country because of his immigration policy. They said if he were to deport and if he were to ban immigrants in the way that he talks, that would have a negative impact on the economy, that the economy thrives and grows because a certain number of people come into this country every year. Now, it's not the 25 million people a month that he talked about, because the country would be twice as large in 1 year. I mean, that would be like literally 300 million people coming into the country in 1 year alone. I mean, so the exaggeration and the lies were just beyond. When we come forward, I want to talk about the way immigrants help our economy and help our country, that could come back to hurt and really be problematic for Donald Trump in November. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
Right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Doug Davis with the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden, former President Trump, and Vice President Harris are paying tribute to the victims of the 9/11 terror attacks today. The three are visiting the World Trade Center and the crash sites in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and at the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. The first presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump featured multiple tense exchanges last night. They squared off in a debate hosted by ABC News in Philly, where Kamala Harris invited people to attend a Trump rally so people can hear how Trump talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. Trump accused Harris of busing in people to her rallies. A new diet pill might be able to reduce body weight by 13% after only 3 months. The European Association for the Study of Diabetes announced its findings on a new daily weight loss pill from Novo Nordisk, the maker of Wegovy. And that is the latest. I'm Doug Davis from the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
SigAlert continues to cause stop traffic flow over in Long Beach as the 103 on and off ramp remains closed to PCH until further notice. If you're headed downtown, drive carefully on the 101 South before the 110 Pasadena Freeway as an accident blocks the left lane with stop traffic over 45 minutes from Gower Street. Be advised on the 91 East at Central Avenue in Compton. Accident blocks the carpool lane with stop traffic over 15 minutes now from the 110.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 in my garage after I overpaid for new blinds. I researched the industry, hired my mom, and 14 years later, we're one of the largest retailers of custom blinds in the U.S. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill admitted Wednesday morning that he could have handled himself better when he was pulled over Sunday morning in Miami for a traffic violation. Hill was a few blocks away from Hard Rock Stadium when he was pulled over by Miami-Dade police for reckless driving. The encounter led to Hill being pulled out of his car, handcuffed, and thrown to the ground. Hill said, "I've got to follow the rules. I've got to do what everyone else would do." Hill still expressed his disappointment in how he was treated, specifically by Danny Torres, a 27-year veteran of the Miami-Dade Police Department. Torres was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. Hill and his lawyer Julius Collins and his agent Drew Rosenhaus want Torres fired immediately. No word yet on whether Hill plans to pursue legal action against Torres or the Miami-Dade Police. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Ugh, I've been feeling so sluggish. I'm just kind of blah. Been there. That's why I take Align yogurt-coated probiotic fruit bites. But I suppose they taste blah. Actually, they taste delicious. It's an apple blueberry flavored center covered in a yogurt coating and is infused with probiotics to help support a healthy gut. They come 5 in a pouch. I just toss one in my bag and go. Toss one in my bag? Get your own.
New Align yogurt-coated probiotic fruit bites from the makers of the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Find them in the digestive care aisle.
Did you know that Pepto-Bismol provides fast 5-symptom relief for nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, and diarrhea? Of course you do, because everyone knows the Pepto song. But did you know that Pepto also comes in convenient and delightful solid forms?
Pepto has very fast melts, cherry chewables, liquid caps that make relief easy.
Pepto makes relief on the go easy. So when you overdo it, undo it with Pepto. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
This is 60.
And that chill in the air means one thing. It's truck season!
Just 5 more minutes.
No snoozing. You've got so much to do. So do it all in a Chevy Colorado or Silverado, including the HD or class-leading 440-mile range of the Silverado EV.
Wait, what? Are you talking to me?
Yes! Picture it. Work, play, hauling gear, off-roading. A Chevy truck can take whatever you can throw at it, including tailgating in an actual tailgate!
I mean, homecoming is just around the corner. Oh, and showing up in a new truck?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Get things done and look good doing it.
Okay, I'm up. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Without offering me a ride? That's cold.
Head to your local Chevy dealer and get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 and Colorado pickups when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 24.5%. Plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available at least in some of the offers. Taking retail delivery by 9/30/24.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
We are back, and in this hour, we are tracking today's breaking and trending news. And one of the biggest stories of today, yesterday, and probably for the days to come is the great debate that happened last night between Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Joining me in this hour is Professor Andrew Carl. He is a professor at the University of Virginia, also author of a very important book called The Black Tax. Also, Alan Orr, an extraordinary immigration attorney, is joining me. And in hour two, we're going to keep talking about the debate because everyone's talking about it. And of course, we want to keep giving you that frame by frame analysis of what happened and how it might have an impact on the upcoming election. The news is in now that 67 million people tuned in to the debate last night. That is much higher, obviously, than the Trump-Biden debate. And it mirrors the numbers for the Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump debate, the first debate between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. And it says that a lot of people are tuned in. This is after Labor Day, Alan, and folks start to tune in after Labor Day to politics more. And I think these numbers are evidence of that. But we still have a lot of undecided voters. As you said, these numbers don't matter. Elections are what matter. These polls don't matter. The pundits' take on the election don't matter as well. But there were some character issues that were really on display last night. And we're hearing about these character issues in a story. There's a family who came out and really trashed Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Their son, an 11-year-old, was killed last year when a minivan driven by Haitian immigrant struck his school bus. And this happened in Ohio town of Springfield. And Trump and Vance, Allen, have been using this story to malign Haitian immigrants. And this father says he's sickened by this. He does not want his son used as a political tool. He does not hate all Haitians. This was a car accident. This was an auto accident. So what are we learning about the character? I mean, maybe there's nothing new to learn about Donald Trump's character, but did we learn anything new about his character on that debate stage? And then, hearing this story?
I think we learned that he was uninformed about the story in general, because he was sort of leaning more towards the pets than he was towards this accident, which sort of built on the pet scenario that is false. And then it was actually an American who was having a mental issue that sort of led to this cat reporting with the police officers. So I don't think we learned anything new about him, except for, once again, as the other host said, how low he potentially will go to sort of have this conversation. I think it also showed that he really wasn't in touch with real life, because the moderator pushed back on him saying, could you tell me some of these facts? And he was saying, I saw it on television, right? As if it was a TV show, and he's sort of watching the world from the outside, where he's a former president. He has access to a lot of information. He could have verified. He could have talked to that information. J.D. Vance represents the state. He could have done something with regards to going there and actually seeing what is happening, rather than just reporting out. Someone called his office and saying, the sky is falling, that sort of thing. So it shows you the care that is given to important issues by their constituency. And also, they weren't talking about addressing it, because if people were actually there eating pets, then the concern is food, not eating pets. Send food, then address the issue. You are just causing fear. So it shows that they have a lack of leadership when you really need something different there. But also it sort of drills into this hate of immigrants, because they have this sum zero world that if an immigrant gets something, then an American can have something. And that's what they need to play on.
Yeah, Professor Carl, again, consistent with the immigration fear mongering that we saw, was this crime, right? That every other nation in this country has seen this dramatic drop in crime because all their criminals have been shipped to the U.S. And even when there was pushback on the fact that the crime rate in the U.S. is coming down, he says, oh, well, those numbers are false, and they don't include these important cities. Obviously, again, some kind of coded language about urban centers, urban cities, and predominantly people of color. How are all of these racist comments? I mean, some of them coded, some of them not so coded. And again, we know how they play to the base, but the whole point of these debates, hopefully, is to expand one's, constituent base. So if Donald Trump can't win with the people that currently support him, he's got to have independents. He's got to have those disgruntled Republicans. He's got to have more people than the hardcore MAGA base. So when you talk about immigrants eating pets, and you talk about crime really being high, particularly in these urban areas that aren't reported, is that speaking to anyone outside of his base?
No, it's not. And it really makes you wonder what the strategy is here. And it's kind of disturbing in the sense that, he is really doubling down on white supremacy here. I mean, Laura Loomer, a notorious white supremacist, was getting off the airplane with him yesterday in Philadelphia. I mean, this story, this lie about, that he told last night during the debate, I mean, these originated on like white supremacist chat rooms. And these have been trotted out in the past to stir up anti-immigrant hysteria. So this is an old playbook, and it really kind of speaks to the fact that, his strategy, and I think all along the strategy had been to demoralize the electorate to the extent that, he can kind of, in some ways, sneak in or, get it close enough that he can then try to steal it, which, maybe relying on those 6, men and women in black robes on the Supreme Court to do him some, help. But I think, this is really an indication of where this campaign is headed. And I don't see any effort really to try to reach out to independent voters, but more so trying to demoralize the electorate so they don't show up. Convince them that this country is in such a sad state that ultimately he can then sort of use that to get a low turnout. That's been his strategy. That was why Joe Biden was really a very flawed candidate, because it played right into that strategy of the American public thinking, here are 2 very old men who we don't want to see as president. Well, now he doesn't have that anymore. And clearly Harris is running a campaign of hope, of trying to actually sort of turn the page on this. And it's been remarkably effective. And I think, and it's not just about winning this election. I mean, clearly he needs to be trounced in order to put this to bed, because, anything close is going to be one in which we're going to have chaos after the election in November, right up until January 6th. So I think, this is really consequential in thinking about what's ahead and how dark it's going to get from him. But again, we should not be at all surprised that this is where he's going, because this is where he's been going for the last decade that he's been in our lives.
No doubt about it. We've been saying on this show repeatedly that we have to win as Democrats and win big, because we know, as you said, Professor, he's going to challenge in courts, in lower courts, where he bragged, Alan, last night about the lower court in Florida, the district court, throwing out his case involving the mishandling of classified documents, lie, and said Joe Biden had all but been found guilty of the same offense. Then went on some rant about Joe Biden and taking money from a wife in Moscow. I mean, Alan, one of the things I'm so upset about, obviously cognitive decline is something that we're not experts in to address someone's or evaluate someone by their behavior, but we did that, we being this country, when it came to Joe Biden. This guy shows so many of the same, if not worse, traits, but it's not talked about in the same way.
Right. Where are the Republicans today? Where's the Republican out? Where's the Republican Party that I used to tout out saying we have these concerns about his cognitive ability, about his recognition, about his understanding of who he's actually running against in the election? Where's the concern about his age, the finances? You want to trust him with the codes, really? Where's his wife, right? That's the big speaker of all things. His wife wasn't even there with him last night. So you sort of question the concern, and you really wonder if he's running towards the bottom, because Donald Trump has a ceiling and is only 33%. So the game is to other disenfranchised voters, keep people from not coming to the polls, but also to just aggravate people. And, we're on a black station, so let's talk about it. He's leaning towards white voters, right? That's the problem. White women and white men are not the problem. The issue that they have voted for him the Republican Party and him specifically consistently in the last elections. And that is just really demeaning to the whole United States, because what are they voting on?
Yeah, definitely. He was talking to his white base, and I think he was talking to those men of color that buy into that bravado when he kept talking about, I'm going to make one phone call and end the Ukrainian-Russian war. He's going to make one phone call and restore peace and, the war. I mean, just this bravado and this arrogance that a lot of people really, truly believe, as a male figure, this patriarchal society, that somehow he can pick up a phone and in these complex geopolitical wars and issues, and that somehow a woman wouldn't be able to do the same. When we come forward, we got to talk about 9/11. We saw President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance both at 9/11 sites in New York City, reflecting on the victims, the loss of lives on 9/11. And then, of course, there's Taylor Swift. What does she mean for this election? When we come forward, KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, this is Councilman Curran Price, inviting you to be part of our city's legendary musical history at the 29th Annual Central Avenue Jazz Festival on September the 21st from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. For decades, the Central Avenue Jazz Festival has honored this historic corridor's unparalleled contribution to jazz. Enjoy a day filled with jazz, blues, and Latin jazz across 3 stages, featuring performances by Chief Ajua, the John Beasley Big Band, and Las Chicas. Indulge in a variety of delicious foods from barbecue to Asian fusion, and explore from a unique mix of vendors and more. The festival is free to attend, and it takes place on Central Avenue between King Boulevard and Vernon Avenue. Parking is limited, so Metro and rideshare are recommended. For more information, visit centralavejazzfest.com. That's centralavejazzfest.com. See you on the 21st.
I found out that one of my players was vaping. I brought him in and asked him, where did this stuff come from? He said, it's bigger than you think, coach. He had told me that almost everybody in my team was vaping. The next day, all the parents came in, and I said, hey, you as parents need to do your part. You guys need to figure out how, why, and when this stuff is happening, and we got to get it fixed.
Coach Sanchez and his team took vaping head on, Learn how he and other Californians are beating big tobacco at undo.org.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion. We aim to be a thermostat, transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number and put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take our auntie to the swap meet.
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% APR on all 2024 Silverado 1500, Blazer EV, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Colorado models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 12.7%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers.
We are back, and Professor Andrew Carl and Alan Orr are joining me in this hour. In hour two, we're going to go deeper on the debate last night that drew 67 million viewers, and that's probably not all the viewers that tuned in across all the multiple platforms, and of course, all the clips that have been watched since the debate ended last night. So I'm going to get some more expert analysis on what the debate means. But Professor Carl, let's talk about 9/11 today. We saw an unusual showing of our current president, Joe Biden, our current vice president, Kamala Harris, and even ex-president, former president Donald Trump and J.D. Vance all together. And Kamala Harris and Donald Trump were actually shaking hands as they reflected on 9/11, the victims, the lives that were lost, and why it's so important that we remember 9/11. Just talk briefly about why we still acknowledge 9/11 and how 9/11 can be a big issue in this upcoming election.
I mean, it was one of the most cataclysmic, consequential events of most of our lifetimes, and it's one that clearly and continues to reverberate through American life in numerous ways. And I think this is something where we'd like to think that this transcends politics, but I'll also, again, and it's, we continue to see things being weaponized in our political life. And it is refreshing at the very least to see instances where we can recognize shared experiences and concerns, and that being one such moment. To what extent that will last, that remains to be seen. But I mean, this is clearly one of those sort of, transformative moments in American life that we're still making sense of. Historians are just now beginning to sort of tackle where we were and where we've come over the last 2+ decades. So yeah, this is one of those sort of moments that we continue to sort of deal with in many ways.
Yeah, Alan, Kamala Harris again just showing herself to be such a class act. Walked on the stage yesterday, walked over, shook Donald Trump's hand, said, have a good debate, or let's have a good debate. And today there's an image of her shaking his hand at this 9/11 memorial. Really prove, I mean, a lot of folks are seeing her in a brand new light. Again, not just the policy she talked about as it relates to building 3 million new homes, giving a $50,000 tax break, tax credit for small business owners, lowering the price of prescription drugs. I mean, she talked a lot about policies last night. But she's also just acting so presidential.
Right. So, I mean, I'm a little bit more petty regarding some of the things that happened today. Rudy Giuliani wasn't there, right? Where's the criminal? He's missing from the photo, right? Last night, Trump didn't know her, couldn't shake her hand. Today, he's trying to come over and give her a hug, trying to be this big welcoming sort of space. So, all those things combined are part of, he is a clown barker. He is a TV performer, a reality show person. And it's all sort of part of his magic, right? He's part of that sort of behind the curtain, which is why I don't think she needs a second debate with him. I don't really think debates move people in the way that we think they do. And I think it gives you a reason, if you are in the party and you're not voting, to potentially get involved and then vote. But it's those who's undecided now and where do you live that you don't have a concept about whether it be a felon or a prosecutor. You're probably the person I don't want to vote, right? I don't need you voting if you're not involved at this point to know who these two individuals are. So it's concerning for the future of America. And that's what I think was on the stage last night. And I will say this too. One of the things she said during the campaigning was, if you have something, you say it to my face. Last night, she said everything to his face, looking at him and calling him by his name. He did not look at her. He did not speak her name one time. And she said it in his face. And that is a part of just diplomacy that I think is important, that will illustrate how she can lead on a world stage that is full of men.
No, absolutely. She was very clear in looking at him and then looking straight to the camera and speaking to the American people, because as we talked about these debates, to the extent they do move people, you're trying to talk to those people who may not be as engaged. You're trying to let the American people know that you're going to be the president for everyone. Professor, there was a huge endorsement after the debate. Some folks said it was already in the works, may have already been decided, but hey, it came out anyway. It's Taylor Swift. And not so much, well, the endorsement is huge, but also they've already reported 300,000 people went to the website that she posted with the endorsement. This is a website where people can sign up to register to vote. They can volunteer for the Harris Walls team. Now, Trump attacked Taylor Swift, saying she's going to pay some kind of price. Who knows what that means? And then called the Harris Walls campaign the political elite campaign. But talk about the importance of pop culture in a race like this, and having someone like Taylor Swift at 283 million Instagram followers. Again, let's put into perspective, with 300 million plus people in the United States. She has 283 million. Now, of course, those are people from around the world, but woo, that means a good number of people in this country follow Taylor Swift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I teach on a college campus, and I can say I rarely see people walking around with political T-shirts or other sort of paraphernalia, but I see lots of Swifties in my classes, and I can say this again: this is not going to change any votes, but it's going to pull people into the process that would not otherwise be. And I can again contrast that with where we were on the last debate, just how demoralized we were, and just how many people were just going to sit at home. And and now we have again a real excitement. Somewhat like we were in 2008. I mean, this is really sort of very reminiscent of sort of Obama's strategy in 2008 in terms of sort of building a level of excitement, getting people engaged in the process who would not otherwise vote. And I think this is another part of that broader strategy. And I think it can, again, have an effect on driving out those segments of the voting public who might have sat at home, and not people who would have voted for Trump, but because Taylor Swift told them to vote for Kamala, that they're going to switch their vote. But and I don't see much sort of downside here. I mean, this is not a sort of celebrity that is polarizing in the way that some others might be. I mean, there is a real sort of broad love and adoration for Taylor Swift amongst a cross section of the American public, and certainly amongst young people. And I think this is a real key demographic that she needs to have turn out for this election, and hopefully this endorsement will do help move that needle.
Well, the Swifties, Alan, they're pretty powerful. So an endorsement by Taylor Swift isn't just an endorsement by Taylor Swift. It is the mobilization and the engagement of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of her fans who were already organizing. There was already a Swiftie Zoom call for Kamala Harris. So Swifties were already operational. So these are like super fans. These aren't just people that buy the music. These are people that travel all over the world for these concerts. They may spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in merchandise and in concert tickets. And they are capable of mobilizing in their communities in ways that, a lot of celebrities aren't able to do.
Yeah, I think it's a very important endorsement. I live in Tennessee, her home state, and I feel like the problem we need now is a civics lesson, because we don't just need a president, we need a Senate, we need a House. And so we need to make sure we're doing down ballot stuff. And here we need to get rid of Marsha Blackburn, so she needs to endorse Gloria Johnson. So we need to have that civics education of saying the president doesn't control everything. We don't have that type of government here. So let's not set her up for failure by having her deal with her own Mitch McConnell stopping everything that she wants to do in the Senate. So that's the reality that we see. To need to curve around now and stop just saying it's not just a Harris-Walz ticket. It's a Harris-Walz ticket and the Senate and the House. Every seat matters, and your dog catcher and your mayor. So that's part of the civic engagement that's sort of missing, that I hope we sort of capture now through other people of saying, this is why it's important for you to vote. And you're not just not voting for her, you're voting for her agenda. In order to get that agenda, you need a Congress that will work for her, as we get ready to close our government down right now because we have a Congress that just does not work.
Yeah, real quickly, Professor Mike Johnson, a brutal beating today, learning very quickly that being a speaker is not as easy as it may appear, not having the votes for this stopgap funding measure because it was tied to this ridiculous bill that would do what we already have laws that do, which basically make it illegal for you to vote if you're not a citizen. And he couldn't get support from Republicans, and he definitely couldn't get support from Democrats on this bill. Mike Johnson has been a very, very ineffective speaker. And hopefully, as Alan said, if folks vote down ballot, he won't have that job much longer. Real quickly, what do you think happens as we approach September 30th with the Congress and the shutdown looming?
Yeah, I mean, this has just been a clown show. I mean, the Republican Party has no interest in governing. I mean, this is really, they've just played to grievances, they play the hits, and Mike Johnson is a sort of example of what the Republican Party has become. And hopefully, again, the turnout is going to be huge because we need to recapture the House and absolutely hold on to a majority in the Senate, even though the odds are stacked against Democrats. I mean, these races like in Montana and Ohio, I mean, these are huge because those seats are what are keeping a majority, a narrow, thin majority. And if without a majority, they're not going to let a Supreme Court justice get through. They're not going to let anything get done. And so if Harris wins, she needs to have the support in Congress to be able to actually govern, because the Republican Party is just about obstruction. That's all they do now.
No, really great point. And Democrats, historically, we've not spent enough time focused on the courts, federal courts, lower courts, appellate courts, and of course the Supreme Court. But with all of the news around Clarence Thomas and Justice Alito, I think folks are paying attention and realize that they can impact our lives well beyond any policy that a lawmaker makes or a president signs into law. It is the Supreme Court that interprets those laws and can make really horrible decisions like we've seen around Roe v. Wade and affirmative action in college admissions and so many other poor decisions by this court. We are out of time for this hour. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining me in this hour. Thank you, Alan. Always a pleasure to be in conversation with both of you. Great conversation, as I expected. We're going to continue with this breakdown of last night's debate that drew 67 million viewers. Some of the best fact-checking we've seen by moderators. Stay with us when we come forward. Two experts are going to help us understand the race and sex issues that were on the stage last night on full display for the American people. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.